Hi guys, look at me outside pretending to be a normal, well-adjusted person. Now if you were to survey a bunch of APS-C users and you were to ask what is the best value, most useful lens that you have ever purchased, in my estimation 90% of them would say one of these two lenses. Either the Sigma 18-50 f2.8 or the Tamron 17-70 f2.8. And spoiler alert, they're both amazing lenses and you can't go wrong with either. However, one of them may suit you better than the other, so let's try to dive into that. And also, I should mention, there is a third lens, the Sony 16-55 f2.8, and that is an absolutely fantastic lens, but it is much higher in price than these two lenses, and that's why a lot of people consider these two the best value going today. So let's talk about it. Now, before I go back out and brave the outside world yet again, let me tell you what these two lenses are extremely useful for. Number one is a kit lens replacement. If you have the budget when you are buying an APS-C camera, I think the best thing to do is skip the kit lens and get one of these two. It covers the same focal range, generally speaking, as a kit lens. So if you're talking about a full frame camera, they usually use a 24-70 for their kit lens, and often for an APS-C camera, they will use a 16-50 millimeters. So full frame field of view, this one right here, the 18-50 is about a 27-75, and this one, the 17-70, in terms of full frame field of view, is about a 25 to a 105. So a great focal range right there. Now, I personally love these two lenses for street photography, for casual photography, especially when I go traveling. But because this one can go to 18 and this one can go to 17, you can also use them for video work. That constant 2.8 aperture is just fantastic. If you're going to buy one lens and only one lens for your camera, these two fit the bill right here. Right now, I'm actually shooting on a Viltrox lens at 27 millimeters. This is the Viltrox 27 1.2. I think a fantastic studio lens, and I am actually about 5 feet away from the camera right now to give you a little perspective. And of course, both of these lenses can do 27 millimeters and so much more. I will show you a studio test of these two lenses in a little bit in the video, but right now, let's go back out into the wilderness. I'm just gonna lean on this right here. That looks good, right? Just a cool dude out in the woods, leaning on trees, talking about camera lenses. Let's do some obvious differences first. As you can see, the Tamron is much bigger and heavier than the Sigma lens. Well, you can't see that it's heavier, but I will write it on the screen. And the Sigma lens is just so tiny, fits in your camera bag. You could get another lens in there, no problem, compared to having this guy right here. Just small, lightweight, covert. You don't want to be noticed when you're doing your street photography or your videography, you're traveling. Oh, this is just, it's such a great lens for all of those things. But with that bigger lens of the Tamron comes some major benefits. Number one, the focal range, 17-70 as opposed to 18-50. So you get a tiny bit wider on the wide end, and then you get 20 more millimeters on the long end. So if you want to do things like portrait photography, this can really come in handy when you want to zoom in to 70 millimeters, so that f2.8 gives you the blurriest background possible at that 70 millimeter focal length. Great for head and shoulder shots. I will put up a shot of the difference between this guy at 70 millimeters and this guy at 50 millimeters. And there you go. You can take a look at that background compression. So if you want to see the difference between the 50 and the 70 millimeter at the long end, here it is right here. As you can see, you can punch in much further on the Tamron, and that can be very helpful at times. And also with this guy, I'm going to stop leaning on the tree because my leg is falling asleep. You have vibration compensation on this. The VC is what Tamron calls it, and that is image stabilization in the lens. There is no image stabilization on the Sigma 18-50. Now, generally speaking, that is not going to be a big problem for you as long as you have enough light and you can up your shutter speed a little bit. You'll still get those really sharp photos. But if the light is starting to dip a little bit, or you want to use a slow shutter speed for some reason, the Tamron 17-70 is going to do you a lot better with that vibration compensation. Especially if you have a camera that doesn't have IBIS, the in-body image stabilization, something like the ZV-E10 or the A6400, it is really nice to have lens stabilization to help you out with your photos and video. So now when it comes to sharpness, both lenses are exceptionally sharp, but they both excel in different ways. The Sigma 18-50 is probably a tad sharper in the center, and generally speaking, that is what you value the most. However, the Tamron is no slouch. It is also extremely sharp in the center, just not quite as sharp as the Sigma 18-50, but it makes up for it in that it is sharper in the corners. So if you want that edge to edge, corner to corner sharpness, then you got to go with the Tamron 17-70. But honestly, in terms of sharpness, even for the full width of the screen, both lenses are fantastic. With flare and ghosting, the coatings are really good on both lenses, as you might expect from companies like Tamron and Sigma. But I will say, I think that the Sigma handles the flaring and the ghosting a little bit better than the Tamron. You see more of the ghosting and more of the crazy flares with the Tamron 17-70, so the Sigma gets the win here. Now, when it comes to focus breathing, both lenses do a fantastic job when it comes to the wide end. At the wide end, which is great because that is generally where you'll be using it when you want to use video. At the wide end, you can see virtually no focus breathing on either of the two lenses. On the very long end, you will see a little bit more focus breathing on the Sigma 18-50, but the Tamron still holds strong even at 70 millimeters in terms of its focus breathing. So both very, very good, but the Tamron has the edge here. So now both of these lenses being able to go 18 millimeters and 17 millimeters respectively means that they can be great video lenses as well for something like a studio, a talking head, you're doing some interviews, these guys will get the job done. 2.8 f2.8, that lets in a fair amount of light, so you don't need extremely bright lights to have in your studio right there. Much better than something like a kit lens, for instance. And let's just take a look right now at the two side by side, and as you can see, there is really not much difference at all. The Tamron, of course, is a tiny bit wider at 17 millimeters versus the 18 millimeters. But when I white balanced both of the lenses, it came out to the exact same white balance, which means that they have the same type of color rendition, which is great. Consistency right there among two fantastic lenses. So take your pick, whichever one you want to use for your studio, there you go. Now, when it comes to autofocus, both lenses again perform very similarly in that they perform excellently. They are very snappy, very responsive, whether it's tracking, whether it's single point autofocus, continuous autofocus, they just do a great job. They don't lose the subject, on par with any of the Sony lenses or the native lenses that you will get for whatever mount you are using. Great job again by Sigma and Tamron. And also, when it comes to autofocus, where a lot of the third-party manufacturers fall apart is when it comes to low light performance. In low light situations, sometimes third-party lenses can perform worse than the native lenses for the mount, but I'm happy to report right here, as you can see in the east wing of my estate, that both lenses perform really well in low light autofocus tests. What do you think of this tree stump right here? Does that keep your attention as a viewer? Now, something that the lenses do have a difference in is the minimum focus distance. The Sigma 18-50 has a fantastic minimum focus distance of 12.5 centimeters, which basically means you can touch the subject and you will still get focus. So it can basically be used as a macro lens. The Tamron, on the other hand, while it has a decent minimum focus distance, you definitely don't want to be trying your macro photography with the Tamron lens. So that may be a big plus for a lot of people looking at the Sigma 18-50. So I am now sitting on this log to tell you a little bit about the bokeh. And I actually almost fell backwards right off this thing. Just to make the image more interesting for you people, I almost died. Anyway, in terms of the background out of focus areas, they look so great on both of these lenses. The fall off is extremely nice. If you compare them side by side, there's not much difference at all. However, when it comes to the bokeh balls, no jokes everybody, you will see that the Sigma performs a little bit better in this regard. There is less onion ringing, there is less halo, and the shape is a little bit nicer on the Sigma bokeh balls. So in terms of the fairy lights and bokeh balls, I have to give it to the Sigma. However, the Tamron, the regular out of focus backgrounds, they look very pleasing. Both of these lenses do a great job here. Chromatic aberration, we have another very strong showing from both of these lenses. Even if you are pixel peeping, very backlit environments, and you are zooming in, raising the shadows, it doesn't matter. You are not going to see much chromatic aberration at all. That is really great to see on these zoom lenses. Now with LOCA, the longitudinal chromatic aberration, that is the color fringing you will see on the before focus plane and after focus plane, and sometimes that can be very messy and that is very difficult to remove in post. But the good news is both of these lenses perform very well. No complaints here on either lens, which is great because that can be a major problem for people when they're trying to edit their photos. So while both of these lenses are clearly excellent, you have to decide which one is right for you. The 18-50 by Sigma, so small, lightweight, compact, it's so sharp in the center, has that excellent minimum focus distance, and the Tamron lens, while bigger and heavier, has the vibration, compensation, that lens stabilization, and of course that bigger focal range of 17 to 70. So, you know, pick whichever one you think is best. Let me know down below what you think, and I better get going here because I think I've seen my quota of people for the week. Gonna hide out for a few days. All right, talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.